to your favorite gecko podcast on the internet.
Love that energy.
Welcome, guys.
Today we got a special guest. We're gonna do some more feeder talks. Before we get into that, like I say in the other podcast, we are part of the Happy Dragons, as is Mr. Dean as well. We're all part of this Happy Dragons crew. There will be an app coming out pretty soon. I believe like June, July-ish. We should have an app for you guys. If you want to get onto their Patreon, you can use Gecko Exchange for 20% off everything that's on their Patreon site. If you got any questions, go ahead. Make sure you hit up Anthony or myself. Now, today we're going to be talking about
the code Gecko Exchange Podcast. Get yourself 20% off. Spend that money.
All right.
Spend
it. Right. Oh, man. So today we got Mr. Dean on. Dean, why don't you go ahead before we start talking about these grasshoppers, man? How did you get into this hobby?
Yep. So my name is Dean. I run the website dragonhoppers.com. And as far as getting into the hobby from the beginning, it's not too different of a story from what most people are familiar with, just going outside and catching stuff. My first store-bought pet was a veiled chameleon when I was 10 years old for my birthday. Cool. And it just sort of expanded from there. I got away from it a bit during college, and from what I've heard, this happened to many others as well, but it eventually clawed me back in.
Nice.
So how'd you make that transition from the chameleons to grasshoppers? Why did this whole thing evolve here?
Mm-hmm. So long story short, grasshoppers are a natural food source for arboreal and diurnal reptiles. That is, as opposed to our typical industry staples like crickets, roaches, and mealworms. There's no instance where a chameleon, for example, would ever eat a roach in the wild unless there's some sort of weird accident. Because chameleons are asleep when the roaches come out at night, and it's not like the chameleons are out flipping logs during the day. So what they do instead is they eat insects like grasshoppers, katydids, flies, beetles, true bugs, which are like cicadas, stink bugs, stuff like that. And this isn't just me doing some, bro science theory crafting. It's well established in the scientific literature where reptile diets are studied.
Sure. So what inspired you to do this? Was it just bettering the well-being of your animals? Did you see a void maybe that had to be filled? What made you say, listen, I'm going to offer feeders that these animals actually need? I'm going to change the industry. I'm throwing a monkey wrench in the gearbox. Well, what set it off?
Yeah, I wanted to feed my pets something that was more like what they would get in the wild. It started with my wife's bearded dragon, because that was the first pet that we had gotten since we sort of got back into reptiles. Awesome. But one thing that happened was I went online to see if I could find grasshoppers or locusts, and I couldn't find anything. They have locusts over in Europe, but there was nothing available in the US. So what I did, and this was back in 2016-ish, was I just went outside and started catching them, and then putting a tub of dirt in there to see what would happen, and sure enough they bred. So that was the beginning. And they weren't really for sale for a while because I was doing my post-bac and then grad school during that time. But eventually I did start selling them a little at a time, and then I started this current business, as well as the current website about 2 years ago when I graduated.
Nice. So you went. What type of? I know nothing about grasshoppers. Is there different species? Or there? Tell us a little bit about grasshoppers. We nothing about them. Teach us, if you will, please.
Yeah. So there are different species. Let me try to think of how I want to say this.
Mike's yours. However you
So
want.
yeah, and it's not like there's one specific type that's better suited for reptile feeding than others, because how it works is the reptiles in the wild, they will eat a variety of species. And there's a bit of a misconception when it comes to feeding reptiles that we need to feed them a variety of insect types, but that's not necessarily true. It's more of a case of giving them a variety of species within certain groups of insects. So if you look at going back to the chameleon diet studies in the wild, you'll find that outside of special circumstances, the vast majority of the diet, and of which I mean like 90% plus, consists of the exact same 6 orders of insects every single time. And that is out of a total of about 30 different types of insects, if you want to go through all of them. But within that, chameleon only eats 6, which is Orthoptera, which is grasshoppers and katydids, Coleoptera, beetles, Lepidoptera, butterflies, moths, caterpillars, true bugs, stink bug, which are stink bugs, and cicadas, stuff like that. Diptera, which is flies, and Hymenoptera, which is bees and wasps. So that's it. All the remaining 25 or whatever orders of insects, they are not part of the chameleon diet, for example. And it will be the case for other types of reptiles too. But in case with chameleons specifically, it's just that. And then within those specific types of insects, they'll eat, for example, 5 species of grasshopper, 5 species of flies, and 5 species of beetles. And that's where the variety comes in, right? So it's that type of variety rather than they're eating a random assortment of insects like roaches, mealworms, or whatever else. So my goal with this project is to reach a stage where you can get a variety of species of the right types of insects for reptiles that would naturally eat them.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. I appreciate it.
What are the
animals?
what,
I appreciate it.
Yeah. What are the key benefits of feeding reptiles, these grasshoppers, katydids, compared to other feeders that we have that are commercially available?
Yeah, so nutritionally speaking, they are incredibly lean. Arboreal insects and also diurnal insects are significantly less fatty than their nocturnal and terrestrial counterparts because they have much higher requirements in terms of evasive abilities needed to survive when everything can see them in the sunlight, right? They don't have the cover of darkness. You can't just be walking around slowly. You have to jump, you have to fly, you need something. So
yeah,
do it all.
Nutritional studies on these types of insects, to the degree at which they exist, clock them in pretty consistently at about under 20% fat, and conversely, it also means they're very high in protein. So another benefit of the grasshoppers is the enrichment factor. So I found out that almost no reptile turns them down, and they elicit incredible feed responsive because they're almost a quintessential feeder insect in the wild. So what I assume is happening here is just a deeply evolutionarily ingrained response to the shape and the movement of the grasshoppers.
Sure.
Nice. Now, could you kind of walk us through the process of so how many different species are you working with for grasshoppers, and then kind of take us through that process of breeding them and raising them?
Yeah, so currently I have six species. I'm hoping some other people can pick up some of these projects so I can move on to other types of insects, because it's a lot. It's a lot of space that's taking it right now, and it's just we just have a little house, right? So, but in terms of breeding or raising them at home or on a small scale, realistically, you can't exactly raise grasshoppers on a small scale like you would with roaches which can fit in a single bin.
Mhm.
In the past, when customers asked if they could use a single enclosure for the whole breeding process, I was like, I guess if you want. But but you're looking at having a table or rack dedicated to them if we're being serious. And that's because you want to ideally hatch the babies separately from adults. Because there's too much of a size difference and they can kick really hard. So what happens is, babies hatch and adults just kick them and they die. So you want to hash them somewhere else, right? You want to separate them by size, more so than you would for maybe other types of insects.
How do they lay their eggs?
So do they lay like? Yeah.
So my bad.
That's what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
No, that's what I was about to ask.
Yeah. They
Is
lay
it like
their,
one big?
Yeah, they lay their eggs in a soil. I use a container, but so the basic requirements are the screen cage, heat lamp, and leafy greens. And when they're ready to lay eggs, then you need a substrate bin for them to lay their eggs in. There are other ways to do it. You could, fill the whole thing with substrate. That's not how I do it, but it's an alternative method. But once they lay their eggs, everything from the hatch time to everything else is completely species dependent. There will be some species that can hatch in 3 weeks, and there will be species that will take 6 months. There are species that like it dry. There are species that like it wet. Same with reptiles. There's a huge range within grasshopper species.
Are all of these species you're looking
I didn't know there was that.
America, or where are these species from? You have species from different continents, or?
No, it's U.S. only. USDA strictly regulates them, so it's U.S. only. But in the U.S., we have about 1,000 species. So there's a lot.
Yeah, really?
There's a lot. Yes, there's quite a bit. There's a bit of a divide, sort of between the eastern and western species because it's so much more humid on the eastern side of the U.S. But regardless, in any given state, I guess it depends on how big your state is because there's some small states. but for example, in California we have 200-ish species. Whereas New York maybe 50, Florida 100 something, and Texas probably has the most because it has both the humid and the dry side, and it's really hot too. So.
Oh yeah.
I'm looking up how many live in my state.
So so what are you feeding what are you feeding them, and then how often are you feeding them?
Yeah, so again, depends on the species. Basically, each species gets, for me, it gets the perfect diet. I spent
15.
years. You said 15?
10 to 15, it says. 10 to
10 to
15 species in Connecticut. It's estimated there. 10 to
Connecticut? 15. Okay, well, Connecticut.
Tiny little state, little dwarf
Yeah.
state.
That makes sense. But yeah, I spent years studying these guys and running food tolerance tests for every species and every locality that I kept. And for example, I'm going to use the differential grasshoppers. To get these guys to peak health, you want to feed them a diet that largely consists of dandelion greens. Right? That is the best one for those guys. But I have another species of grasshopper called the Carolina grasshoppers, where they're in their best shape if you feed them grasses, especially wheatgrass. And luckily, wheatgrass is very easy to grow at home. You just put the seeds in a cup at root temp and they grow, and then you don't even have to go to the grocery store for those guys. But
nice.
Yeah, I've had species that do best on oak, blackberry, hibiscus. It really just depends on the type of grasshopper. But I will say one thing: dandelion is basically universal. There are a lot of vegetables in the grocery store that will kill your grasshoppers if they eat it, and they're not smart enough to avoid it. They're just going to eat whatever. But dandelion is, universally good for almost every single species of grasshopper. So if you're not sure what to give, to the species that you have, dandelion is almost always going to be good.
Feed a lot to my bearded dragons. They love that stuff. Feed it to my crickets too. Just grows everywhere
Yeah.
in my house, obviously. Feed it to everything. My bearded dragons
Is there
love
any
flowers.
protein requirements for them?
No, each species, will have different sort of requirements. The bird grasshoppers, the ones that get really big, tend to do better on higher protein diets, whereas the more grass eaters species like the Carolinas, are gonna you're looking at lower protein quantities. I think wheatgrass is, I'm not sure. I think it's about 20% protein, and yeah, it really just depends. But there's no additional like supplemental protein feed that I'm giving them. They're just eating leafy
Okay.
green vegetables. Yeah. I have a dry flake diet that I saw on my website, but it's all flaky plant, products. It's stuff like
Okay.
raspberry leaf, alfalfa leaf, bran, stuff like that.
Nice. So, what are some of the challenges that comes with breeding these grasshoppers for you?
For me, challenges come when there's a new species, because I don't know what the requirements are. It's, there's no guide on it. You just kind of have to look at how they're growing outside and be like, okay, I'm gonna, this comes from the desert. We're gonna do it a little drier. We're gonna, and I'm finding on this type of weed, so I'm gonna, choose something similar to that from the grocery store and just kind of see what happens.
Okay.
But there could be periods with new species where it's just failure for a while until I figure things out. So there's that. But I think for the average keeper, the sort of the diurnal aspect is something that people aren't used to, and having a heat lamp for feeding insects is not common practice from what I've seen. So that
All
could be
species
a
need a heat
challenge.
lamp?
Yes, yeah, basically. I mean, some species are a little more flexible. Maybe they can just get away with the heat. But realistically, I would recommend the heat lamp for all of them, and that's because they're diurnal. So
Yeah.
they use the light to thermoregulate. I had a situation where I had a species of grasshopper where I was trying to, just kind of LED bar, and then using alternative heat sources like ceramic heat emitters.
Uh-huh.
What would happen is they would just clump up on the LED to try to get heat because they use the light cues to thermoregulate. So they were completely
Okay.
ignoring the ceramic heat emitter, which they needed to be going towards if they wanted to get warm. They would just stick to the light, and they would just die
It's
because
an awesome
they
observation, to be honest. That's
they
cool.
couldn't heat up the way they needed
Yeah.
to.
And what
But
I want to say, what like watts are you using for for your bulb?
it really depends. It really depends on your ambience. If your ambience are high, you could get away with a pretty low wattage bulb. But if you're somewhere colder, let's say it's room temp, at that point you probably want like a 75-watt halogen or something like that.
Still a good sized bulb, though.
Yeah.
Still put out some heat. When
Yeah.
it comes to a new species, and you're taking on a new species of bug, what characteristics? Well, there's so many damn species apparently. What characteristics do you look for in a grasshopper that makes you want to take them on and work with them?
Yeah, when I first started, I just wanted the biggest, most productive grasshoppers, right? Size. So I was looking at size and like how quickly they were produced, and so the first species I ended up starting with were the bird grasshoppers in the genus Schistocerca. These guys are huge. So it gives you a huge range because when they hatch, they're always tiny, but they can get big. So you get a large range of sizes from the smallest grasshopper to the largest, where you can feed any type of reptile. And among those, I initially started with the most productive ones. So these were the gray bird grasshopper and the American bird grasshopper. But what ended up happening is sort of looking into the regulations, because at first when I started, I didn't know anything about the regulations. I just kind of worked with whatever. But it turns out you cannot keep the American bird grasshopper in California. That is completely illegal. You can't keep it here. You can't ship it anywhere from here. That one was off the table. So what I was left with was with the great grasshopper, Schistocerca nitens, and that one, it gets big, it's productive. However, same sort of thing. While we can keep it in California because it's a southwestern species, what we cannot do is we can't ship them out east. So that was an issue with that one. So after that, I started looking for species that had much larger ranges. So I was looking for things. There are a few species of grasshopper that are native to the entire United States. So that's the differential grasshopper, the Carolina grasshopper, and the Sparta grasshopper. So after that point, these were the characteristics I was looking for. I was thinking, does this have a big enough range so that I can legally ship them to people across the country?
Okay.
The dog is flipping out.
No, you're all good. So I know I keep a lot of smaller geckos. So what would be the best I guess grasshopper to feed them? Most of my geckos are between 2 to 6 inches. Besides like my chihuahuas, which are like probably what 8, 9, 10 inches or something like that. What would be like your recommendation for that?
So realistically, they're all tiny when they hatch out. So it doesn't make a huge difference. But I will say that the Carolina grasshoppers, they will stay small for quite a long time. So,
Okay.
when they turn into adults, there's a huge growth spurt. But until then, they actually stay small for quite a long time. So those will be probably a good option for someone with smaller lizards.
What's the life cycle look like for these things? They hatch and do they? See, I've bred crickets, plenty of crickets, but how do they morph? They're just born crickets and they just grow and molt out. How long will a cricket live or a grasshopper live for?
Yeah, the life cycle is almost identical to crickets. They hatch out small, they grow, they molt a little bit at a time, and then depending on the species, they'll live for a couple months up to a year. It really just depends on the species.
That's a huge plus from crickets, man. Honestly, you got to when I breed crickets, I'm like pinched into this time frame where I have to feed them off or breed them before they're done for a year. That's an awesome. I mean that's a huge selling point for as far as feeders. I mean, and anyone keeping them or having a large collection and needs bugs on standby. I mean that's awesome.
Yeah, the large species especially live a long time. It depends. The species, especially the ones that overwinter as adults, they are quite hardy once they reach that stage, and they'll just kind of live forever. And the ones that tend to be a summertime only species, those ones you're looking at a shorter lifespan.
Still longer than any cricket.
Yes, they're always going to be longer lived than crickets for the most part. Yeah.
I'm surprised these aren't more popular than they are. Like I'm surprised crickets, and I'm curious as to why. Maybe it's the heat lamp alone, but for what reason are crickets more popular than grasshoppers?
You can produce crickets much more cheaply and at much greater quantities. That's probably the biggest one. Yeah. So grasshoppers, besides the space requirements, there's the heating, there's the lighting. All those things combined make it so in terms of cost, it really doesn't match up to crickets at all. And besides those basic heating, lighting, and food requirements, that really eclipse anything that you would typically need for nocturnal and terrestrial type insects, which we're used to in the hobby. If someone were to do it in a lower cost of living area, they could probably bring the price down quite a bit, as opposed to me doing it here in the most expensive county in the entire country. But grasshoppers would still never be as cheap as the current cheap staples. And that's just because you can't just stuff them in a bin with egg carton.
If you don't mind me asking, I mean, I guess technically you don't have to answer this, but what would you charge? What does it cost for 100 of your most basic grasshoppers? Like, what does it cost? What's the entry level for someone to get in for some feeders in comparison to crickets? Say, this month I'm not going to buy my regular 500 crickets. I'm going to get 500 grasshoppers. What would that cost?
The cost is that there's no cost that's not available right now. My production is very much limited and spread out, amongst a lot of customers. So I can really only fulfill small quantity orders. Stuff like, hundreds is just completely out of the question right now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
I thought this was on like a bit. All right.
No. My hope is to eventually, send these projects off to other people who have much higher production capacity than I do, because
I'm gonna try this summer. I got a big 4-foot screen cage. I'm gonna put outside. I'm dead serious. I wanted to do it last year, and I just couldn't. To be honest, I didn't have a net to catch the damn grasshoppers. Like I see them all the time when I'm out with my dog in the woods, and I go to these, the place where they run the power lines. They're like open fields in between them. I mean, tall grass, but these things are in there by the thousands. I just got to get a net and catch them, and then put them in a screen cage, and I'm going to raise them.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely need the space for it. I've had some offers come in for people, looking to invest, but
someone should like Zoom Ed or something, like, some cool Timberline or, flukers. Someone should, if they knew, I mean, they're breeding billions of crickets, I mean, they could do something big scale like that, maybe. I mean, people eat them, right? They're a big delicacy in places. I've seen crickets online for sale, human grade crickets. I make my own powders for my food, so I'm always looking for dried bugs, and I found grasshoppers for humans.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone's interested, just let me know and I'll send some out. But yeah, that's ideally.
Sorry, guys. There's like a tornado coming, or a hurricane, something.
Oh shit! Damn.
I apologize. So what were you saying, Dean? If we know anybody, send them your way for what? If they're interested in what?
No, ideally, the big companies would pick them up because they have giant warehouses and stuff like that. That's sort of where I want to get to with the grasshoppers now. Is
sure.
I want to get to a point where anyone can go online and have, a good availability of grasshoppers, not just in terms of quantity, but in terms of species as well. But we're not there yet. That'll be, now that I have a good number of species established for the grasshoppers, I think the next step will be to make sure the availability is there in the coming years.
Pump up the volume, pump it up. How many grasshoppers can one female produce? Like, what would you expect out of one female grasshopper for her laying season? What could you get? Your basic species.
Yeah, so they'll lay, each female will lay a few egg sort of cases. And those egg cases will consist of, it depends on the species, again, like everything else.
Yeah, you're basic, just pick your regular whatever.
On the lower end, you're looking at like 50 eggs. On the higher end, you're looking at maybe 150. That's what I would say, approximately.
It's not bad.
And
it's not. If you had a pair and you were breeding for yourself for the season, or, I mean, it's doable,
Yeah, they are highly productive. That's the one thing they're good at. And the only issue is just once they do hatch, it's a lot to deal with in terms of the requirements compared to other insects.
Walk us through that. Why is it? What do you mean by that?
Well, because when they hatch, that's when you have to put the nymphs in their cage, and you need a heat lamp, you need ventilation. You need to constantly replace their food, right? It's not, roaches, you can feed them like once a week. They'll be fine. You can't do that with grasshoppers. If you put leafy greens in a hot cage, they're going to dry up to crisp. You have to replace that every day. So that is, way more work, maintenance, supplies, everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what that sounds like right there. That's like, you're almost taking care of another pet.
Yeah. There's a huge time cost and labor cost associated with grasshoppers that you just don't have with other types of insects. And like, if you have a lot of grasshoppers and you want to take a vacation or something, that could be an issue.
You better tell someone to come over and come feed them. Oh man. So when you're selling, like, for your customers, right? What are some best practices that you usually give them or tell them to hold them and take care of them and everything like that? What are some things that you usually tell your customers?
Yeah. So ventilation is really important. I think that's something that people might miss. Heat and leafy greens, especially knowing which type of leafy green to feed. And if you don't know which one's the best, then you can almost never go wrong with dandelion greens. So if you're just feeding off grasshoppers, it's pretty simple. It's the breeding process and raising tons of them, and that's where it becomes very resource intensive.
Okay.
Not impossible though, guys. If you really feel compelled to do this, I have faith in anyone that can keep a gecko alive. If you do the right things and listen to what Dean said and use some heat and some ventilation, get yourself a couple breeding pairs, and you have a small collection. And hey, I think, no offense to you, I'm not taking anything away from you, but I think that people could do this. I think that think it'd be an awesome feeder, man.
Yeah, it's
definitely love the science behind it.
It's one of those things where once you figure out, it's this is easy, right? It's I think the difficulty for a lot of people is the sort of novelty of it, how different it is from other feeders. But once you get the hang of it, there's nothing necessarily difficult per se about it. It's just another routine.
Yeah, and it's just me being consistent with it. Like like a lot of gecko keepers or reptile keepers is like, all right, I feed Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so that's the only time I really check on my feeders. So it's checking daily with them, replacing daily with them. So yeah, and you just incorporate it into a routine of like, all right, when I come in Tuesday, let me spot clean real quick. Let me feed these grasshoppers real quick. So it's just a matter of breaking in new habits and being consistent with those.
Yeah, definitely you will develop new habits.
Yeah. So from a health perspective, are there any concerns or precautions for owners when feeding these grasshoppers to the reptiles?
Yes. So there's a genus of grasshopper that I referenced earlier called Schistocerca. And this is the large bird grasshoppers. They have really long legs, and once they reach a certain size, they can get really gnarly spines to go with them, to the point where they can break skin with a kick. Right? They can hurt you pretty bad just by kicking you. So, if you're feeding off any of those bird grasshoppers, I would remove the legs on the large ones before feeding. That would be my one.
Are any species poisonous? Is there any poisonous or toxic species we should be careful of?
Yes. So I don't breed them for obvious reasons, but in the wild, there's a family of grasshoppers called Romalidae. These are the lubber grasshoppers, and you guys probably don't have them where you live. Jason, what part of Arizona are you?
I live in Arizona.
Which
Tempe.
Part? Tempe. Okay, not Tempe. So in Tucson, there's one called a horse lubber. So that's one type of lover. It's a giant black and yellow grasshopper. It moves very slowly. It can barely jump. It can barely fly. They just kind of lumber around because they have no fear. Yeah, they're poisonous. They're like, what are you going to do? You're going to eat me? Good luck, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So there's that one. There's also a prominent one in the east, the eastern leopard grasshopper, but it's more southeast, around Florida and the Gulf region.
You have any pictures of them on here?
Not on that account. I may have
I'd love
posted
to show
it.
people what not to catch and feed their damn animals.
It might be on my personal account. I don't use it anymore, but I posted stuff in the past. I probably posted the lovers on there.
Well, guys,
You go
listen
to
to Dean and look them up.
Dean.
Make sure you don't go out catching your animals and thinking you're doing them some huge justice and you
Yes.
kill the poor things.
Yes. What you
Right.
want to look out for is aposematic markings, and by that I mean contrasting bright markings with black, black stripes or something like that. In the case of lovers, it's black with red or yellow stripes. But
I've seen those.
whenever you see these colors in the wild, you should always avoid feeding them off to your reptiles. In some cases, it's not necessarily harmful. It could be a mimic, right? But in the case that it's not, you're in trouble. So best to just, unless you know your insects very well, you should just avoid them completely would be my recommendation.
So these black and yellow ones are clearly not poisonous, right? So he got some spikes on his legs,
So
though.
that is called the spotted bird grasshopper. The way that black and yellow one works is it's similar to the hornworms, which they have a host plant relationship that keeps toxic material in their belly if they maintain that. So those guys in the wild they'll host on a plant called the hop tree, and it's a really bitter, nasty tasting leaf, and then that's why they have that warning color. It's like, hey, if you eat me, I might
But in
taste
captivity,
awful.
feeding them dandelions, they're fine.
Yes, correct. So that's how that works. The thing that makes the lubbers different is they have a toxin sequestration mechanism, which means they can eat whatever. They'll take chemicals from this plant, chemicals from that plant, mix and match it, and turn it into a poison with their store and specialized glands. And when you look at them, you'll see that they have this really bulky structure up here, and that's where they store the poison. And that's what's special about that family, Romalidae, the lubbers. All these other grasshoppers, they're in the family called Acrididae. They're called short-horned grasshoppers. And these are the typical grasshoppers you'll see in the wild. If you go in a field and you see grasshoppers jumping everywhere, there might be 10, 20 species, whatever, but they're all in the regular grasshopper family, which is Acrididae. And those are all safe unless they're eating a toxic plant. Whereas the lubbers, it doesn't matter what they eat, they can produce toxins.
Okay, interesting. So let's get into some. So can you kind of discuss like the legal aspects of shipping and everything like that?
Yeah. So I have to talk about this because the folks at the agriculture departments have requested that I be more proactive in disseminating this information to this community. Legality is a serious issue when it comes to grasshoppers because they are literally an agricultural pest. Yes.
I always assumed that's why they didn't have them as feeders more, because of all the problems they cause.
Yeah, so that is a hurdle. And locusts, which are swarming grasshoppers, have destroyed lives all over the world. So if you're selling grasshoppers, they must be native to your state, and you must get permits with that state's Department of Agriculture. Wow. Then for shipping out of state, you need permits from the USDA, and species need to be native to both your state and the recipient's state.
That's a problem.
And yes. And if they aren't native, you aren't getting a permit. And, some people might try to do some things. Just I'll say as a word of caution, please don't try to lie about their native range to get a fraudulent permit or something, because you can still get in trouble later for that. And the seller is not the only one at risk. Both the seller and the buyer are at risk. So it's not a harmless crime or for the customer either. And if someone ends up in the news for this or there's an outbreak somewhere, our community takes the blame. So doing stuff like this puts our entire reptile community at risk. And the Department of Agriculture.
When you make a sale, who does the research? Is there like an application or something? Like how would somebody, I mean, now hearing that, it all makes sense. Like you can't just have like an open market like it's crickets. Like you could just send crickets wherever you want. You can't. Who does the research when you make a sale? Do you put that upon the buyer? I mean, or how does that whole thing work?
Yeah. So I have permits for all of my grasshoppers, and I also have posted on the shipping page the sort of warning labels that USDA sends with the permits. Both USDA and CDFA, our California one. So you can read those there. But yes, you are supposed, as the seller, you are supposed to inform the buyer. So when you ship out grasshoppers, you have to ship them out with a permit slip, right? So I print them out up to about that size, and then it has a bunch of stuff about protecting agriculture and the environment, and this is the permit number and blah blah blah.
So say I didn't know that, and I went on your website and I tried to buy a grasshopper that's clearly not native in Connecticut. What happens? Who's going to catch that? Who's going to, say I didn't know. Say I was like, damn, well, those grasshoppers look cool. I'm going to get those as feeders. Let me put it in order with Dean. And they're not a native species here. How does that whole thing work? How would that?
Yes. So on an interstate level, you're looking at the Department of Agriculture, USDA, although the state departments might get involved too. But as far as, getting in trouble, from what I understand, first they will start you off with a warning. And then if you ignore the warning and you continue to do it, that's when they issue a fine of $10,000.
Ouch.
So you do list what's available for what state on your site? Like if I was going to buy grasshoppers, I can go on there and see what grasshoppers you have that are available and native to California and Connecticut, which I don't even see how it's possible, but
so luckily it is possible, but
really,
my ability is so low that I don't, split them up into different species just because I don't want to confuse anyone with a bunch of, things that are just sold out. But eventually it will be split out into species on the website. But right now what I do is customer puts it in order. I see what state they're in, and then I'll send the species that's native to both of our states. Yeah.
Clever.
So that's how I do it right now. Eventually, it'll split up into different species of grasshoppers, but that'll be a little farther down the line.
Is that the same protocol for katydids?
So right now I only have one katydid species that I've been sending out, and that one is native to all states, so there's no issue.
Awesome.
But
is there
as
laws though, and restrictions with them in general, or
it's the same sort of thing as grasshopper? I don't know if they care as much. They definitely care about the grasshoppers because of the whole locust thing. I'm not sure how much they care about katydids per se, but technically they are on the same system. So if I were to get a katydid species that has more of a restriction range, let's say it's just in the Southwest, I would just be applying for permits, for the Southwestern states, and I would just ship within those regions is how I would do it.
This is super interesting, man. I'm a lot more interested, and no offense, than I thought I would be. I mean, this is super cool, man.
Yeah. The regulations, learning through them did take some time. It was definitely a process. But I would say just for grasshopper specifically, it's pretty serious, because of the damage
Ironically, I
that
clicked on one of your posts
you.
and it says it. Grasshopper species without the permit can be legally shipped across
Yeah.
counties in my last pod. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, it says your
yeah,
last
yeah.
podcast. You're doing a podcast appearance.
That was in what, February? Yeah, so that was a different podcast appearance. Yes, I talked about
And
there are three species. I think I might have said them already: differential, Carolina, spotted bird. These are the ones where you can ship to almost every state, but you can't send them from coast to coast. For example, all three of those species can be sent from California to New York, and it might seem like, how can this species span such a huge range?
Yeah.
The way that works is over on the east side where it's more humid, wet. They're kind of just all over the grasslands and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then here out west, they are exclusively riparian, right? It's so dry in California, they would never survive the grasslands. But if we have a river or a lake or something, then that's fine. They can reproduce there. There's enough moisture for the eggs.
so do they have to USDA or Department of Agriculture, do they have to come and inspect like I guess like your facility or anything like that?
Yes, yeah. I've been
Really?
inspected a couple times.
Holy shit! They take these
Yeah,
grasshoppers seriously. Damn, man! I
yeah,
canceled it again. Son of a bitch.
yes,
Ugh.
yeah. So
I mean, what's
you
that
will.
process like?
Yeah, I mean they come over and they look around, they take pictures, they take notes, and
Mhm.
they'll let you know if you're all good.
Who's your biggest clientele base? What type of reptile keeper is it? All like primarily chameleon keepers?
Yeah, I would say chameleons are the chameleon community is where my primary focus is, just because those are my favorite animals.
Makes
But
sense. Are
but
any of these species,
there's a pretty
ironically,
big
by chance,
range.
native to Madagascar? Sorry to cut you off.
No, we can't keep
Well,
any Madagascar natives, unfortunately. Yeah, that would be really cool, but it's all U.S. natives right now. And what you can do, and here's what I've been doing, recently to look for some new species is I've been looking for some equivalents in terms of convergent evolution,
mm-hmm.
because you can have grasshoppers from different sides of the world look identical because they're fulfilling the same niche,
For sure,
right?
for sure.
Yeah. So that's another part of what I'm working on right now. But yeah, you really want to. Ideally, I would love to get as close as we can to the stuff that's in Madagascar, stuff that's
Have you
eaten
found
by
anything?
chameleons, Europlatus, whatever. Yes,
Have
I
you
have some
found anything?
ideas. Yeah, I have some projects that I haven't announced yet, but yeah, there are some things in the works.
Nice. So,
Leaf
where do you
generator.
see the future of like using insects like grasshoppers as a sustainable alternative reptile source? Do you think there's going to be a lot more? You think a lot more people are going to want to start introducing grasshoppers, or you think it's kind of like a almost a niche type of a feeder because it's so expensive to keep them and house them and everything like that? Do you think people are going to start uh, let me see, putting it in their round table of feeders?
Yeah, and going back to um, what Anthony you mentioned asked earlier about the different communities. I as I've done this more, and I started with chameleons, but I've seen interest from Abronia, the gecko community, monitor lizards, bearded dragons, just all of the spectrum. So honestly, I see a bright future ahead for grasshoppers, and in fact, I think they'll be widely available within the next few years, given where we are at this point. because I've finalized the protocols for at least 5 species that I think are best suited for a hobby. And now comes the part where I need to shift my focus a little more into developing educational resources so that others who have the capabilities to produce them affordably at scale can do so. And once we reach the stage where someone can purchase a variety of grasshopper species from, various suppliers, no matter which state they live in legally, and, that will mean that my work here is done, and I can fully transition to the next stages of my project, which will include katydids and then eventually beetles and true bugs. Because my ultimate goal is to reach a stage where people can mimic a perfect natural diet for their pet reptiles.
Hell yeah, man.
Nice.
That's awesome. I love the passion. Like that's it's cool, man. That's cool. I always try to like offer, as much as I could for that very reason, but I've never taken it to this type of level, I mean, it's inspiring.
Yeah, and hopefully we can make it a normal thing. That's the goal. That's the goal.
But after hearing you, I believe it's probably the USDA and all these people at the agricultural department that's making it hard. I would imagine a lot of people are like, you know what, there's a lot of red tape here. I'm just going to keep feeding crickets.
Yeah, that perhaps could have been, it may have certainly contributed to the lack of, people picking it up in the U.S. But luckily I was able to find a few species that could be shipped everywhere. It did take a while. It took years. It took years to get the right species and the right localities that would produce well. But those 3 species, the differential grasshopper, Carolina grasshopper, spotted birch grasshopper, if those could be produced in large quantities, any company can ship them to almost every single state. Yeah.
Nice. So I get on your, so do you offer like, I know like some like maybe like praying mantis folks and stuff like that offer like egg sacs. Do you offer egg sacs as well?
No, not at the moment. What I would have to do if I was selling eggs is I would have to, set up more breeder cages, which I suppose is possible at some point. That's an interesting idea for sure. I've definitely had people ask for it, and it hasn't been available yet for the most part.
Yeah, in the like the insect world, I've seen that a lot. Like just like egg sac of this, egg sac that. Like my girlfriend was looking.
Right.
She's a jumping spider person, right? And she saw like this website offering egg sacs for sale. I was like, they really do that? I was like, there's like almost like 100 spiders. Yeah.
That's cool.
I was like, damn, okay.
So the issue with grasshoppers is actually that they lay their eggs in the soil. So you would have to send a container of soil with eggs in it, which make things more difficult. And it's you're never sure how the eggs are going to fare in the mail when they when you're transferring the eggs to another container or something like that, because they're not supposed to be exposed to the air. They're supposed to be in the soil.
Are these egg sacs here? These are grasshopper egg sacs?
Yeah, so those are ones that I pulled out of the soil, and at that point they're completely dried up. So those eggs are no longer because as soon as they're exposed to the air, that's pretty much it for the most part. Okay. It depends on the species, and in some cases, if you have a humid enough environment, maybe they'll be fine. But that's the issue with grasshopper eggs. It's actually easier with katydids. I've sold katydid eggs quite a bit because they're just they lay them on a stick, so that makes things easier. And that's why praying mantis eggs and stuff like that are easier to ship, because they're just out in the open, and they have a foamy protection layer. You don't have to worry about them desiccating.
Okay. I was going to try those for feeders. My egg pods died. They never. I don't know what I did wrong. I bought them online. I bought 3 egg pods. I was like, I'm going to breed, I'm
Mhm.
going to hatch praying mantises and use them as feeders because they're likely in the canopies with my chihuahuas and lychees. And I'm like, let me try. And then it
So
freaking failed.
they are in the canopies. Here's the thing though, because I was a little surprised when I saw that they were like a tiny percentage of the chameleon diet. Like it was like 1%
Really?
or less for the most part. And that's and when you think about it, it makes sense because
Because they're ninja moves.
so praying mantises are much higher on the trophic level than grasshoppers or katydids, right? They are basically carnivores. I mean, they're insectivores, but they're much higher on the food chain, web, whatever you want to call it. So they are nowhere near as abundant as grasshoppers or katydids or any other herbivorous insect. So that's why there's, when you see them in the wild, they're more noticeable. So you might think, oh, there's a lot of praying mantises, but um, there are way less mantises than all these other types of insects that just eat the grass and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's the same thing with dragonflies and other type of insects that eat other insects. You might notice them more as a person and think like, oh, there's a lot of these. Maybe they're a big part of this animal's diet, but there are less of them than you think.
What differentiates a katydid from a grasshopper? What makes them different?
Yeah, so katydids are even more arboreal than grasshoppers. Well, roughly speaking, because there's a bunch of different types of katydids. Like there's shieldbacks that are on the ground. There are leaf katydids, but usually, like when we use the term katydid, we're thinking of the leaf katydids and the true katydids. So the ones that are in trees and
Yeah.
shrubs,
Yeah.
and a lot of these species are really really high up in the canopy. I don't know if you've ever heard them chirping from way up in a tree at night, but that means that any type of animal that spends a lot of time way up in trees is going to be eating more katydids as their sort of orthopteran of choice. So probably a lot of types of geckos, chameleons. What I've heard is that katydids are a huge part of the tree monitor diet.
I
And
bet.
another difference is katydids, they're not strictly nocturnal, but they're definitely way more active at night. So
Okay.
so that also, probably makes them a big part of the gecko diet. But the thing is, they're not completely nocturnal the way crickets are. So that's why they still get eaten by diurnal animals. Because crickets during the day, they'll hide under a rock or a log or something like that. But katydids, they're still just in the trees. They don't have a body shape where they can, slip under something. They are, when there's sunlight, they're still going in and out of the shade to thermoregulate, and they're still eating. So they're always available to be eaten, even during the day. But it's really nighttime where they're most active, where they'll be jumping from branch to branch, or you may see them flying from tree to tree. They won't necessarily do that during the day. So
Are
those are the
grasshoppers,
difference.
katydids, and crickets all in the same order? Why do these bugs
Yes,
all have these jumping legs? So they are related in some way then.
yes,
Okay.
yes. The order is Orthoptera, so it's
Orthoptera.
grasshoppers, crickets, katydids. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And grasshoppers, everyone basically knows what that is, and crickets.
Learn with me,
Katydids are a
guys.
little
Learn with
different.
me. I'm an idiot over here. I'm trying to learn now. Get it with
Yeah,
me, fellas.
katydids are the ones that, like, if you're kind of a normie, you never really know, like, is that a grasshopper, is that a cricket, like which one is it?
Yeah.
Because some katydids, they look like grasshoppers and other ones look like crickets. They're
Uh-huh.
just incredibly diverse. But
Orthoptera.
if it you know so the ones that look like grasshoppers, you can tell if it's a katydid and not a grasshopper if it has long antennae, right? Because they need that to be active at night. So that's how you'll tell that it's a katydid. But the ones on the ground, the ground katydids, they're usually, the thing that differentiates from them from crickets is they're usually a lot bigger. So if you know what the Mormon cricket is, the
do.
Mormon cricket is actually, yeah, it's actually a katydid, but it looks like a cricket.
I
But it's
figured that
huge. It's huge,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how you tell, because most crickets they're all tiny, but katydids, especially the ground dwellers, the shieldbacks, and the weedas, and all these other ones, they're huge.
Interesting.
So I was gonna ask, are you ever going? Do you have any intentions on ever getting to like stick bugs or anything like that?
So the thing about stick bugs is I've never seen them be a huge part of any any reptile's diet, at least as far as the scientific literature is concerned. I'm not sure why. Maybe they're not as abundant as they seem, or maybe it's just because they're nocturnal, which means they're not really a food source
Okay.
for chameleons. But I would imagine I would need to see more gecko studies. There might be potential there.
Mhm.
But there's another hurdle with stick insects is I am not aware of any stick insect that you can legally ship across the country because they have rather limited ranges.
Okay.
The
I found them. I fed them.
the
Yeah, I
most
think I remember seeing them on. There was this person that used to breed them. I think his name was, or his website was like Full Throttle Insects or something like that.
yeah yeah
And I think he used to like sell them. So
People
I
keep
was
them
just
as
wondering
pets.
because
I've
I
seen
think I
people have
actually heard him on
pets.
the yeah. I had him. What was it? I listened to him on the Chameleon Academy podcast. That's where I listened to it at.
Well, Bill
I was just
Strand,
wondering.
the chameleon
Yeah.
fanatic,
yeah. So
chameleon connoisseur.
again, similar to katydids, I don't know how much the departments of agriculture care about stick insects specifically, but they are technically on
Hmm.
that same system where sort of they're,
Okay.
yes. Well, so you do technically need permits for them. And they do need to
Okay.
be, native to the ranges that you're shipping within. So, and I'm just not aware of any stick insect that's native to all states. So
Okay.
I wouldn't be able to ship from coast to coast. We have one that's pretty easy to raise here in California. It's called the Indian stick insect. It's obviously an introduced species.
Hmm.
You could definitely do it at a state level. That would be possible. But
Yeah.
as far as interstate shipping, I think that may be an issue. Um, so that's my deal with stick insects. But otherwise, as far as are they a good feeder, I think they're a fine feeder. Um,
Yeah.
Even though they're not necessarily um, a big part of the diet in a strict sense in terms of what we have scientific data for, they're similar. We're talking about arboreal, herbivores. So as far as nutrition content go, I would imagine they're pretty similar. So, if I had to guess, I think they're probably a good feeder, but I don't
Yeah.
have plans for them currently. I'm looking more at grasshoppers and then transitioning to katydids, beetles, and then true bugs is sort of the trajectory I'm on right now.
Yeah.
Let me use the
Oh,
restroom real quick.
you don't have to add. Okay, go ahead.
All right, thanks.
Uh, I think we just lost Anthony. Yeah, folks. I mean, if you do want to get some of these feeders, like just make sure you hit up Dean. Uh, I said he got. I looked on his website a couple times. As like I said, for me, I got small geckos, so I wasn't too sure those would be a good feeder for mine. But maybe if I could get them real small, might be able to go ahead and try that out. But definitely, if you got big animals, monitors, hell, even leeches or whatever, go ahead and try it. Uh, I think we lost Ant. I know he was going through a storm, so he might be gone for this one. But we are almost over with. So once Dean gets back, we'll go ahead and do some closing. Be out.
What happened?
There's Ant. I don't know. You bounced out. I thought you got storm.
The whole thing shut down on me.
All right, I'm back.
Okay. Well, we're almost done. So, Ant, you want to hit him with your closer? Uh-oh. I think he's frozen again.
Yeah, it's I don't know what's happening. There's a storm rolling in over here. The wind's blowing. My shutters
Yeah,
are going to blow off the house, and now I'm getting no freaking service. Welcome to New England.
All right. Right. You want to hit him with your closer then?
We're done. I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
apologize.
no, you're all
Situation.
Can't control the weather. Can't control the weather.
All right, so I have a question I
So,
typically ask everybody. If a 10-year-old child came up to you and said, Dean, I want to grow up and I want to do what you do. I want to breed grasshoppers and contribute to this reptile hobby, and I want to do exactly what you're doing. What advice would you give a 10-year-old child that aspired to do what you do one day?
Well, if we're talking about everything in terms of the whole project I'm doing,
the whole thing.
researching all these different insects and testing them out and stuff like that, you better start reading.
Do you have any advice on literature where someone could find this information?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're talking about since I was a kid, I've been reading my whole life. I've always read a lot. And when it came time to look for information for these types of insects and reptile diets, stuff like that, I use Google Scholar quite a bit. At university, they also give us their own university library system that you can use to read articles, but you should be able to get basically everything you need from Google Scholar. And there's a ton of scientific literature. Depends on the type of animal we're talking about. Some have more literature than others, but if you have the attention span to sit down and go through all these studies, there is a whole wealth of information to be gained from there. And my breeding protocols that I've developed largely started from what I found, in these especially lab experiments, as well as descriptions of their behaviors in their natural habitats. And there's a lot more. There are some really good studies out there that you could learn a lot from if you just take the time to read.
So you'd say read.
If I could
read, find every article you can, leave no book closed. Read every study, research papers, read it all.
Yeah, and you will have to test it yourself to see how those things apply in practice.
Absolutely.
But step one is reading. If you want to do this kind of stuff, if you want to reach into novel territories, it's going to start with reading.
Awesome advice.
Nice.
I love it. Read.
Oh yeah.
That'll make me happy.
We always talk about that. Yes, research, and research. That's what I always preach.
No.
So mine is
Cool.
Yeah. So mine is like we'll kind of just do it to your grasshoppers, but what has been like your biggest failures and what did you learn from those since dealing with grasshoppers?
Oh, sure. So when I initially, started acting on the vision I had for this business, I tried to breed every type of insect at the same time, which spread me so thin that I ended up not having time for anything, and almost nothing was accomplished, resulting in basically an entire year wasted, at least in terms of production. So I've since been taking things one step at a time and pacing myself in a way that, I'm accomplishing my goals and producing grasshoppers, albeit, one at a time. And it's one of those less is more situations where, focus on one thing at any given time will allow you to maximize your potential in that aspect. So
Sure.
Just don't spread
Definitely like
yourself
that
too
thinking
thin.
because yeah, I feel like I'm running myself thin right now. I was like, I got
You know me
like
both.
5, 6, 7 different species of geckos I'm trying to breed, and I'm like, oh man, just because it's just so many different things you got to worry about. Like, all right, this one needs to get
Hmm.
incubated like this. This one needs to be incubated like this. This one needs sand with it. This one needs perlite
Yeah.
with it. Just a whole lot of different things, and it's like, am I really doing this stuff right? So definitely understand that one right there.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and there is sort of an efficiency that can be gained by having things a little more streamlined and not having your
yeah,
attention pulled 50 different directions by all these different
Sure. That's why I
sort of
stopped breeding crickets
requirements.
and
yeah,
started buying them again. Screw that. I could buy them for cheaper than it cost me to deal or raising them. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
The time I have now, the
yeah,
extra time is like, whoa. It was a full-time job breeding crickets, to keep, you know, pinheads, mediums, and large crickets on deck, and 1,000 of any of them in a clip all the time it was a job for me, man. It cost me
yeah,
$80. I could buy 3,000 of all sizes. I'm good for a couple weeks, man. 3 weeks. It's hardly worth it.
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
Time is more
yeah,
valuable.
yeah,
yeah. I mean,
exactly.
that's
Yeah,
what I definitely recommend for crickets, and my hope is that we can get there, for grasshoppers next.
I think so.
And then yeah, when someone can, it won't be quite that cheap, but you know I think I want to get to a point where someone can just go
Someday,
buy grasshoppers from
someday,
Josh's Frogs or
your
whatever,
local,
and
sure.
yeah,
like
go to your local
yeah,
reptile
or your
shop.
local pet
Yeah,
shop, they can just go there
Josh's
and buy
Frogs
like a
is a good
thousand.
pitch too, man. If you pitch your idea to Josh's Frogs, I think Josh would be the perfect platform. They're in all they're that'd be a good one. That's a good move.
Yeah, maybe you, and then maybe it'll get to the point where people can just get them at the big box stores, and
Get them dead. Get them in a
and
can.
you yeah, yeah, and if we get to that point, then I will have succeeded. My job with the grasshoppers will be done, and I can
You're doing a
move
good
on
job,
to.
though. You're doing a good job. You're a
yeah, dude.
plethora
Thank you.
of knowledge on the topic for sure. Again, I admire that.
Yes,
Yeah. So
my goal is for someone to put me out of the grasshopper business. Please put me out of business. I need a slogan.
oh man. Oh man. So where can everybody find you, Dean?
Happy Dragons.
So yes, Happy Dragons. So my website is dragonhoppers.com. My business name is technically Feed My Chameleon LLC, but that was too long. People couldn't spell it. So website, dragonhoppers.com. Social media, dragonhoppers. Instagram is probably where I'm most active, but I do check the other places too. So there you go. That's where you can find me.
Awesome.
Nice.
Check them out, guys. Check them out. Got some cool stuff going on here, man. I mean, and the science behind these feeders is amazing. It's brilliant. It's natural. These are what we should be feeding these arboreal animals, man. If you guys are keeping leaf tails, cichlids, anything from, that's a canopy dwelling species, man, dude, this is where it's at. Science is here, man. Grasshoppers.
Yep. Yeah, I do. Yeah, on your website too, you do have like a whole breakdown of like what was it, like pretty much the diets, the nutrition, all that stuff is all on their website, correct?
Yes, yeah. I wrote that was an article that I'd initially written for Bill Strand at the Chameleon Academy.
Okay.
The full article I wrote for his newsletter, and that's sort of a little more of a summarized version that I just put on my website, so people can see
Okay.
what I'm trying to do, what my mission is here. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Make sure you guys check out the website. Like I said, guess well, I mean, I don't know how much he has right now, but like I said, when you look on there, it will tell you like if it can ship to you or not. But definitely check it out. See if you got something available for your state. Give it a try. And see how your reptiles react.
Yeah, and since the website just goes out of stock all the time, just message me if you need any, and then I can probably open something up. Um, I'll work on producing more myself, but also I will work on trying to make sure that the people and the companies that have higher production capacities can eventually start selling them too.
Nice. All right. Well, everybody, we're gonna be done with this one. You
Thanks
guys
for having me.
have a great night, morning, afternoon. Said this will be up on Spotify, Thursday, iTunes on Thursday, all that good stuff. And said we'll talk to you
YouTube.
guys later.
Stay weird,
Yeah,
people.
everything.
Peace.
Peace.
Thanks.
Yo, creeping in the dark, life nocturnal. Dark and dark, both paths arboreal to terrestrial. Sticky toes gripping forest through desert explore. Listen close, Gecko podcast, that's knowledge galore. Reptile talk, host Anthony and Jason. Trade secrets flow, no time wasted. From tropics to town, it's sight raining. With every chat, reptile game changing. Escaping heat waves, tan under rays. Desert sand echoes, sun blazing days. Little hustlers, camouflage and maze. Catch them speaking wisdom, the wild on replay. Reptile talk, host Anthony and Jason. Trade secrets flow, no time wasted. From tropics to town, it's sight raining. With every chat, reptile game changing. Sculling through the leaves, shadows unseen. Master of disguise, chameleon dream. Lizard tails flip, script getting clean. Gecko exchange, true reptile fiends. Reptile talk, host Anthony and Jason. Trade secrets flow, no time wasted. From tropics to town, it's sight raining. With every chat, reptile game changing. Scuttling through the leaves, shadows unseen. Master of disguise, chameleon dream. Lizard tails flip, script getting clean. Gecko exchange, true reptile fiends.